There are so many ways peaches can brighten up a dish, and not just desserts. When I have a bunch of peaches over the summer, one of my favorite things to make is a peach chimichurri and a seared skirt steak. Chimichurri is a really popular condiment in Argentina, and when you're traveling there, you'll pretty much see it on every table. And what it's based on is parsley and garlic. From there, you can have fun with all the additional ingredients you add, but those are the basis of a chimichurri. So here I've got about a cup of parsley that I'm just gonna rough chop. And then comes garlic. I'm gonna do about 3 smaller cloves of garlic and also give those a good mince. And now we're gonna add half of a red bell pepper. You can see that it's already coming together as a really colorful dish. So next we have 2 Roma tomatoes. And for this, I actually want to take out the seeds because I want most of the moisture to come from our red wine vinegar, our olive oil, and the peach juice. First, I'll just cut these in half lengthwise and then take out that juicy pulp. For the tomatoes, we'll also just give them a really small dice. Now I'm gonna add a little bit of oregano. You can actually get really creative here and add any type of herb you have in the garden or on hand. And the moment you start chopping it, its beautiful scent comes out. That's really the advantage of using fresh herbs. And finally, we'll put half of a small red onion here, also a small dice. Now it's time to add our star ingredient, peaches. Their peak season is sometime between June and August, and during that time you'll see a variety of peaches. You have white peaches and yellow peaches, and within those 2 categories there are more varieties. But today we're using yellow peaches. They're tangier than the white peaches, and to really elevate the sweetness today, we're going to grill the peaches before we put them into the chimichurri. So let's start by preparing them for the grill. I have 2 beautiful yellow peaches, and the way I've chosen them is by just firmly pressing them with the palm of my hand. That's how you check for peaches. You don't want to squeeze them with your fingertips, otherwise you can risk bruising them, and it's not really a good indicator of whether or not they're ready. You also want to make sure they don't have really any major scars or existing bruising. So these peaches are absolutely perfect, and I'm just going to start by removing the pit. So I have my 4 peach halves that I'm just going to go ahead and quarter, and now we're ready to grill them. So right now I'm using cast iron skillet. I've got it lightly oiled, and my peaches are sliced. And just before it starts to smoke, you add the peaches. You want to grill them at a pretty high temperature, and you want to hear that sizzle. We'll go ahead and grill these a couple of minutes on each side until they're browned. All right, these have grilled long enough. You can smell the sweetness, but you also have that great smoky flavor from the char. Let them cool a little bit and add them to our chimichurri. So all of our ingredients are in, and all that's left to add is our seasonings, right? So we have our red wine vinegar. I also want to add red pepper flakes. Now, whenever you have a lot of sweetness in a dish, unless it's a dessert, you want to cut that by adding a little bit of spice too. And of course, salt. This should be well seasoned. A little bit of fresh ground black pepper. And finally, olive oil. So our chimichurri is complete, and now we're going to set it aside and let it sit. Let's get our steaks ready. The first thing we want to do is pat it really dry, because the secret to preparing great juicy skirt steak is to cook it really fast over high heat. And if you have a lot of moisture trapped there, that's not going to happen. So once you have one side patted, just go ahead and season it very, very generously. So lots of salt and pepper. Got one side, and we'll do the same thing to the other side. Now that we have it all seasoned, let's take it over to the stovetop and get this thing seared. Skirt steak cooks really quickly, so I'm going to prepare this pan by putting it on very high heat. And right before it hits that smoking point, that's when you add the skirt steak. And I'm going to add just under a tablespoon of butter and mix that with a little bit of olive oil. Now when we add the skirt steak, we should hear that sear, that sizzle. We'll let it cook on each side for about 2 minutes. So we have a little bit of that caramelization here, and it's curled up a little bit. That's how you know that the skirt steak is ready. Our steak has been resting for a few minutes, which is really important because all of those juices go right back into the meat. So you can see here that the grain is going this way, and we want to cut perpendicular to it so that the meat just falls apart when we plate it. So to do that, cut it into little strips. And as we cut into it, you can see that it's still a little medium rare in the middle there, ensuring that it's still really juicy. As you can see, the peaches, the tomatoes, they've really let out their juices and combined with that olive oil and red wine vinegar to create a beautiful condiment. So there you have it. This dish is a perfect way to show just how sweet and tangy peaches are, while also showcasing their versatility. Bon appetit.